Hello, all. I'm Michelle Needens. I'm one of the social workers with the Cognitive Care Network with the KU Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. We're going to talk a few minutes today about something I think is pretty tough to discuss, and that is really thinking through the driving experience and planning for driving in retirement. That is something that is difficult. But like everything else, I think important for you to be an active part of the conversation. I think putting yourself in a situation where you are making those decisions and plans can absolutely help with decreasing some of the challenges that can go along with that experience. I always want to point out a couple of things, and that is, sometimes people will tell me, I see drivers out there, and there's a lot of folks that are driving worse than I am, and that very well may be true. It doesn't have anything to do with whether you're a safe driver or not, or the judgments around that. But there's certainly many people out there who may or may not carry a diagnosis, who struggle with some driving and perhaps should not be on the road. The flip side of that is, just because you do carry a diagnosis such as MCI or early Alzheimer's disease, that does not mean necessarily that you're an unsafe driver. That there is a period of time when driving is okay. There is a period of time where driving is okay with accommodations, and there is a time where driving is not safe. And you trying to kind of figure out and work with your support folks and providers on trying to sort through that is what is important. There's some specific reasons why driving becomes challenging. And it isn't just about getting lost. People think that it's primarily about getting lost. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, certainly it depends on the type of cognitive impairment, and other factors play into some of that. And I have seen individuals quite early stage who have struggled with getting lost, getting turned around. I would say the majority of the time, other kinds of factors emerge before concerns about getting turned around. So reaction time can slow. Multitasking can become challenging, and there is no scenario in which driving does not require multitasking. Anytime we're behind the wheel, we're having to navigate a whole set of things. Visual spatial field is perhaps the most challenging. So there are some depth perception changes, and that can impact driving in a multitude of ways. That is our ability to kind of have good sense of where we are in the environment around us, how close we are, proximity to other things. Decision making, not necessarily decision making in and of itself, but the speed of making decisions can be challenged at times. And then just the cognitive flexibility to navigate around novel situations or unexpected situations. So the kid that runs in front of the street, or the deer that runs out, or a detour, or a emergency responder vehicle and having to navigate lanes, or road construction is a big one. So how do you do in terms of managing those novel or unexpected situations? Here's some signs of unsafe driving, and I just say them to you so that you can keep them in your mind. Again, it's not one thing, it's a number of things that you pay attention to, and really encourage your family to work with you on this. It becomes a joint project in some ways, in terms of hearing their concerns and recognizing your own. So if you've had incidences where you thought to yourself, wow, I didn't even see that car come up behind me, or, uh, close calls in which you pulled in front of someone, those kind of things that if you notice that it's harder for you to keep track of other drivers. Lane control can become an issue. Depth perception, hitting the garage with the side view mirror going in, running up on a curb when you park. Those perceptual changes in terms of how close am I to something else. More frequent and unexpected braking, that can flag just your level of confidence about driving, as well as that visual spatial phenomena. That you're finding that it's taking you more time to run errands, that you have to navigate sometimes some wrong turns, and it takes you a while to find your way back home. Errors at intersection, that before you stop, you're halfway in the intersection, or you're finding yourself struggling with how close to get to the car in front of you. There have been instances where in challenging situations, in stressful situations, that people have mixed up the gas and brake pedals. Hitting curbs, as we talked about, running stop signs, stop lights, and really feeling more miscombobulated in unexpected road work or construction kind of situations. When you are considering, am I safe to drive? Where is that line? I want you to think about your own level of confidence. I have had many individuals that I've worked with mild cognitive impairment or an early dementia who simply said, I don't feel confident anymore. I just don't feel safe behind the wheel. And maybe they had one incident where they got turned around and lost. Maybe they had a close call in a situation, but their confidence is just not there. And we pay attention to that. That's your gut trying to tell you something. And maybe it's something important. Others identifying concerns. So listen to your family and friends. Now, if they say I have concerns driving and you don't see it, be open to a conversation about why. Tell me why. Tell me about what you're seeing that makes you concerned, and listen to that. That feedback, that reciprocity in terms of the dialogue will be helpful in you making the best decision about when it might be time to make a change. Geography and frequency make a difference. And by that, I mean, some of you may live in very small communities, where you're only driving a couple blocks to the store and it's not a problem. There's not a lot of traffic, etc. That may extend your ability behind the wheel to navigate behind the wheel. By transitions, I mean there are times people move. I mean, maybe you move to a new community, a new area that's more heavily trafficked. Maybe to another state. So, those transitions may make a difference in your driving. If it's a new situation or presents a different environmental challenge, as I said, if it's more congested kind of area. If there are concerns, you have concerns, others, family members have concerns, providers have concerns, driving evaluations are good options to have. They are medically based. That means that they're usually staffed by occupational therapists who are familiar and trained to look for those challenges in a dementia that may impact driving. So there are a couple programs here in Kansas City area. There are programs, a few programs in other parts of the state. They are not common, but they are important. So if there are concerns raised, really a driving evaluation could give you some objective and thorough feedback to make those decisions. Do they tell you that you can't drive? Sometimes. Do they tell you you can drive and you need some accommodation? Sometimes. Do they tell you you're driving fine? Sometimes. So it's not an inevitable outcome, but it gives you some confidence when questions arise. Driving should always be regularly assessed, and that includes with your family. And that means if you're used to driving alone, you need to make sure every few months that somebody's driving with you that can give you that honest feedback. If you're one of these individuals who, when you're with your family, they get behind the wheel and you're the passenger, the only time you're driving is alone, you need to consciously make a decision to invite someone to drive with you to help render some of that objective feedback. Your own self-reflection and conversation with others, conversation with your provider, including honesty about any challenges that you have experienced. And at times, even if you've had a driving evaluation, it may be suggested that that be repeated at some interval, 6 months or whatever, 9 months intervals. There are all kinds of accommodations that might apply. For some, it's the use of GPS in those for those times that you're going somewhere that you're not well familiar with. GPS can also be a distraction. So I always say to people, if you're going to begin using a GPS, make sure your family goes with someone in your family is with you the first few times you use it to assess, is it more of a distraction for you or is it helpful? If it's more of a distraction, it may be you need an alternative driver for those trips to places that are not as familiar to you. So test that water. It may or may not add any element of safety. It can be a distraction. Sometimes accommodations will be no highway driving in terms of speed and reaction time kinds of issues. Make sure that you're keeping your car up to snuff. You don't want to be in a challenging situation and something go wrong with the car, including paying attention to the gas tank. Define parameters. So sometimes they'll say only drive to these 3 places, or only drive in a 5-mile radius, or so sometimes there's parameters that are recommended. Often there'll be recommendations about limiting distraction, which could be talking in the car, visiting in the car, or radio. We think about patterns and time of day. Sometimes the recommendation will be no nighttime driving, for example. And you want to have those backup systems, including making sure you have your phone with you. For some people, that might be a little note on your steering wheel. When you get in the car, it says phone ? Make sure you have your phone. So all of you, all of us, need to have in our mind that there will be a day, likely, that driving retirement is required. If we live long enough, that is an inevitability for most of us. So as we think about the day that driving retirement may occur, I think it's important to really plan, because it's not just about giving up driving, it's about giving up driving and still doing all the things you did, still having that level of independence, still getting to the places that make life worth living, not feeling trapped. I mean, so just like any retirement, driving retirement has to be planned for. So we identify the places that it's important that you continue to go. Structured, not structured, inclusive of social activities. When people give up driving, often they're hesitant to ask other people to drive them places. So they only do so when it's a real necessity, like going to the doctor or going to the store. That is not enough for most people. Unless you're a homebody and more of a reclusive individual, you're going other places, and that needs to continue. So, if you have the Bible study or the men's breakfast or the walking, the group that goes walking, or fishing, or whatever it is, Those are important to continue. They're part of your quality of life, and we need to figure out how to get you there. So really identifying those places that are important, all of them, for you to go, to really look at time trends and schedules so that that can be mapped out, that there could be a system put in place that integrates both informal sources, neighbors, friends, family, fellow club members, all those kind of things, as well as perhaps formal supports. A driver, for example, hiring an assistant, or other transportation services. Some people use Uber, for example. And then remembering really what is important, that who sits behind the wheel is not important. It's not near as important as you continuing a productive, enjoyable life that is complete with connections with other people. So do we grieve it when we retire? Yeah. It's all about relinquishing and replacing. So if something has to be relinquished, including driving, then we figure out how to replace it so that life continues. As always, if there are questions or discussion comments that you have about what we've discussed today, do not hesitate to reach out. I wish you the best, and I'm sure I will see you again. Take good care.